I think we covered a good bit of we covered prime factorization. So I'm just going to cover a couple today just to review, and then we'll get into 5.3, which is greatest common divisor, least common multiple. So let's see, I think that's 5.1, and there we go. I don't know if, yeah. So let me go into here and here. And I think we covered, yeah. All right, let's start here. So write down the greatest common divisor. Now you don't have to just write down greatest common divisor because you don't have to write all of that. The greatest common divisor is the smallest number that will go into a set of numbers. And I don't have my whiteboard up. I pulled everything up except the whiteboard. Hold on. I've got so much to pull up, it takes me a while. There we go. Greatest common divisor is the smallest number. Write down the smallest number that will go into a set of numbers, that will divide into a set of numbers. Smallest number that will divide into a set of numbers. For instance, what is the smallest number that will go into 2 and 10? 2. That's your greatest common divisor. What's the smallest number that will go into 5 and 25? 5. So these are what we call our greatest common divisor. That is the the biggest number that will go into, did I say biggest or smallest? I said biggest. Smallest. The biggest. I'm thinking of the least common multiple. The biggest number that will divide into a set of numbers. Okay? Now, what if I gave you 10 and 100? Again, the biggest number that will go into both is 10. So those are examples of the greatest common divisor. The problem is not you knowing the greatest common divisor. That's not the problem. How do you get the greatest common divisor? That's the problem, especially with 2 or 3 numbers. And the next thing that you're going to learn is called the least common multiple. I'm going to go ahead and show you what the least common multiple is before we go further, okay? There it is. Now, what is the least common multiple? The least common multiple is the smallest number. This time I got it right. The smallest number that given numbers will divide into. So if I give you 2 and 10, what is the smallest number that 2 and 10 will divide into? A lot of people would say 20. You would be wrong, because 2 will go into 10. So the least common multiple of 2 and 10 is 10. What's the least common multiple of 3 and 21? 21. Because 3 will go into 21, and 21 will go into 21. What's the least common multiple of 7 and 14? 14. So again, if you look at two numbers, if they're basic enough, sometimes you can tell what the least common multiple is or the greatest common divisor. But what if there are two numbers that are composite and you're not sure? Well, I'll show you how to do that, and I'm going to show you how I show students. And I would suggest, if you don't know how to do this, which a lot of people don't, you might want to follow the way I do it. So, I'm going to do both. I'm going to do the greatest common divisor. Well, let me do one at a time. The greatest common divisor of 54 and 90. So here we go. 54 and 90. I draw my chart. And I put 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and sometimes 13. Those are the only numbers in our universe. So now I want you to go down, I want you to divide until you get prime numbers. Okay? So to find the GCD, we divide by primes until we get all primes. Everybody with me? I want you to use 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and sometimes 13, and I want you to get it down to nothing but prime numbers on the bottom. So go ahead and do that. Find a number that will go both at 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. Which one of those numbers will go into both 54 and 90? Well, what are both of those numbers? They're composite, but what are they? I'm asking y'all, that's not rhetorical. I want y'all to communicate with me. Even. So which number in the divisibility rules goes with even? 2. So I'm going to divide by 2, and that'll give me a 27 and a 45. Well, I don't have, those are composites. So I got to keep going until I get what? All primes. So what number? 2 won't go into 2745 because 2745 aren't even. So I can't use 2. What else can I use? 3. So I'm going to divide by 3. That gives me a 9 and a 15. I can use 3 again. That'll give me a 3 and a 5, and I'm done. That is my greatest common divisor. So here, our greatest common divisor is equal to 9 times 2 is what? That is the biggest number that will go into 54 and 90. Question. Great. Complaint. And I'm going to take my handy dandy highlighter and I'm going to highlight this right here, because when I get all prime numbers on the bottom, that means I have my greatest common divisor. Anybody got a question on that one? Okay. Let's move on. I'm just going to erase this. And I'm going to give you two more numbers. Let's go with let's go with 24 and 36. Go ahead and start on that. Pendleton, can you slide that camera to your left? I can only see 4 people. Pendleton, slide it to your left. Keep going. Keep going. Thank you. That's good enough. That's good enough. Thank you. All right, so what do 24 and 36 have in common?
2.
2, so I'm going to divide by 2. And that'll give me a 12 and an 18. Divide by 2, give me a 6 and a 9. Divide by 3, give me a 2 and a 3. And I'm done. So the greatest common divisor of 24 and 36 is 12. That is the biggest number that will go into 24 and 36. Now, I have found that not a lot of people have a problem with this. But that's not where the problem comes in. The problem comes in with the least common multiple. So we're going to go ahead and move to the next couple of examples and find the least common multiple. Everybody good with the greatest common divisor? Okay. There we go. So 54 and 90 again. Now, I'm going to tell you this. This is the way that I teach it. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't know anybody that teaches real math ends. Okay? So I don't know what other methods there are. Except the tree method. I don't teach the tree method because that confuses more students than it does good. So 54 and 90. First thing you do is go ahead and find the greatest common divisor first, like you've been doing. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and sometimes 13. So we already did this, but we're going to do it again. 2 give us a 27 and a 45. 3 will give us a 9 and a 15. 3 will give us a 3 and a 5. At that point, when you find the greatest common divisor, I want you to take a red pen or a red highlighter, draw a line under this, and put real math ends. Real math ends. Why? Because there's nothing to divide into 3 and 5. The goal of least common multiple, you remember a while ago I said you got to have prime numbers? To find the least common multiple, you have to have all ones on the bottom. So I need to divide and get ones on the bottom. Now, when the real math ends, that's where the magic math takes over. The magic math says if you divide something evenly, you can divide it. If you can't, you just bring it down. I'm going to write that in blue. Magic math, I don't even know how to spell magic. It's different spellings. Magic math quotation marks. If you can divide, that means you divide. In other words, if you can divide evenly, you divide. If you can divide evenly, you divide. If you can't divide, you bring down. So if you can divide, you do it. If you can't divide, you bring down. So I'm still using my 3, 5, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, sometimes 13. I know I got a 3 there. I can get a 1 if I divide that 3 by 1. So I'm going to put a 3 here. And that gives me a 1, and this comes down like that. I can divide by 5. That comes down, and that comes down. I've got my 1s, so this is my least common multiple. And that's going to be equal to 2 times 5 is 10, and then 3 times 3 times 3 is 27, so that's going to be 270. Now, there's 2 people in here. One is going, I kind of remember doing that, but I think we did it with trees. And then the other one is, I need to write this down because I've never seen this before. Okay? And I can guarantee you $1 to a donut hole, there's nobody in any one of these classes that perfected it. Because I can give you 4 numbers, and pretty much all of you will get it wrong. Okay? So, I wouldn't be too confident on this. Make sure you know how to do it. Because I see people not writing. I see people, I don't know what you're doing on your laptops, but just make sure you know how to do this, because if you don't know how to do this, you're not going to know how to do 5.3 when I give you 4 or 5 fractions to add up, and you've got to find a common denominator. And some people just multiply them all together. That's not it. The least common multiple is very important. Let's put a green mark beside least common multiple, because that is your greatest common denominator. This is your greatest common denominator when you add fractions or subtract fractions. All right, so let's do a nerd. Y'all settle down, y'all getting too loud. All right, so let's go with 7, 21, and 105. I want you to find the greatest common divisor and the least common multiple. Give y'all a couple of seconds to finish it. Oh, somebody needs to Skype in. I don't know when they texted me. 12:12, I didn't see it. Okay. There she is. Carolina, are you there?
Yeah, I can, yeah.
Okay, turn your camera on if you want to. I just saw your text because my phone was on silent. I'm sorry. You should be able to see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Boys were
Oh,
the most vicious.
oh, that's what you sent me that. Thank you. I wondered what that was. Oh, I wish I could figure out why my phone does that. When you pull up a YouTube video, you can escape out of it, but it keeps playing. Oh, I got to figure that out. It's them damn Russians, that's what it is. All right. No, it's the Iranians now. The news reports that Iran hates America, but they're shooting their own people because they're protesting against the Iranian government. So somebody's lying somewhere. By shooting your own people. But we got it terrible in the United States. We can't protest or nothing, but they shoot people in Iran. But Iran is serving meals on wheels to people, and they're angels. Okay, so divide by 7. Why did I pick 7? Because 7, I know it'll go into 7 and 21, and I think 7 will go into 105, won't it? Mm-hmm. So there's my 1, there's my 3, and here is what?
15.
Oh, 15. I said 35. I guess I'm just tired. So either drugs with alcohol or what? 15. Now what? Well, the real math stops. So we're going to draw a red line there. How do I know the real math stops? Because nothing will go into what? Oops, I'm sorry. No, that's right. 3 will go into 3 and 15, but 3 won't go into what? 1. So that's how you know. That's where the real math stops. Real math stops, so I changed it to a blue marker. And now I'm going to divide by, well, the 1's there, so I'm just going to divide by 3. That comes down. That's a 1. And that's a 5. Now divide by 5. And I got my 1's. So here is my common denominator. I'm sorry, my least common multiple. And that's going to be 21 times 5. Now, it just so happens that it comes out to be 105. Is that going to happen all the time? No. We'll do one here in just a minute that it might not be 105. Okay, it might be something total bigger. So let's do another one. Let's do, well, I don't know if they're going to give us 1. Let's see if they're going to give us 1. Okay, we're not going to do that. We're going to go backwards. There we go. Let me erase this one. Let's do another. Let's do, I can't think of one right now, but I'm just going to do 24, 48, I'm thinking, hold on. Let's go with 240. Two, 3, 5, 7, 11, and sometimes 13. Find the least common multiple and greatest common divisor. Give you about 30 seconds. So, I'm going to divide by 2, 12, 24, and what goes here? Let's say 2 will go into 2 one time, 2 will go into 4 2 times, and we're going to divide by 2 again. 6, 12, and 2 will go into 12 6 times, and 2 will go into 0. Should you be doing this out to the side? No. You should be doing this in your head. 2 will go into 6, go in there, 6, go in there. And at this point, the real math what? Real math, all I heard was so I don't know what that means. I'm going to say the real math stops. Now I changed my blue pen. And I'm going to divide by 3. And that's going to give me, well, I'm sorry, 3 will go into all 3. So real math doesn't stop. Sorry.
I was a bit okay.
Everybody's supposed to, okay, now that I found my error, everybody's supposed to go, oh yeah, I saw that. I didn't understand why you did that. All right, on 3. You ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, I saw that. I wouldn't know why you did that. Yeah, you wait until after I find it. That's when you say something. Y'all suck. Oh yeah, and Bubba, he sits on the back row. He don't even know what day it is. Yeah, man, you wrong. Gotta love those people, you know. Yeah, man, you wrong. You don't know what you're doing. I can't even get the black pen to work. I suck. 3. That'll give us a 1, a 2, and a 10. Now the real math stops. And I put a line here. Real math stops. Where the real math stops, that gives me my what? My greatest common divisor. Greatest common divisor is equal to 4 times 6 is what? 24, Hubert. Thank you, class. Now I do my blue marker. And I do 2. That's going to come down. 1 and 5. And 2. 1, 1, I'm sorry, 5. 5, 1, 1, 1. So that's going to be 240. Least common multiple is equal to 240. Now I can't get it to come out right this time, but it's not always going to be your biggest number. Okay? It's not always going to be your biggest number. That's what a lot of people think. And they also think that if they take the common denominators and multiply them together, that's their least common denominator, and it's not. So we're going to jump over to in 5.3 when we jump into fractions, and I give y'all some fractions that like 4 or 5 numbers long, fractions long. You're going to be happy that you know how to do this. Okay? All right, so let's see what they give us next. Okay, let's see, I don't know what this is. I don't know why this is even here. Okay, because we're not studying to the n power. We haven't even went over exponents yet. So we're just skipping this. Go ahead and write that down if you ever need on Jeopardy. Mercedes primes occur 2, 3, 5, 7, 13, 17, 19, 31, 61, and 89. There. Now you know a Jeopardy question. Because I'm not going to test you on that. Largest prime number discovered by a guy that don't have a life. Okay? A professor at the University of Central Missouri. There. 2 to the 57,885,161th power minus 1. Are y'all impressed by Mr. Curtis Cooper? Yeah. He needs a boyfriend or both. Okay, Fermat's numbers. Why are we doing this? This is not. We're skipping this. Now, I will mention, go ahead and mention Fermat's theorem, because there's a guy in England that is now going under review, and I don't know if he's ever, you can look him up. Can't remember his name, but he got curly hair and glasses. But he's proved Fermat's last theorem. And you can Google it, look up Fermat's last theorem. I think he's a professor at Cambridge, and he has proven Fermat's last theorem, which is basically 2 to the 2 to the n plus 1. But anyway, that's just some little, again, that's in case you're on Jeopardy, you can answer Fermat. He's a mathematician. Euler, Euclidean geometry, we're not going to get into that. Oh my gosh. This is ridiculous. We're not going, we're not doing that. We're going to 5.3. So let's go to 5.3. I realize I'm running out of time, but it's important because 5.3 is going to make up a good portion of your test. Okay? I tell you right now, 5.1 and 5.3 together is going to make up about 50% of your test. So make sure you realize that, because that's all there is to it. Now let me see, 5.3, here we go. This should be adding and subtracting. Should be adding and subtracting. Yeah, I think it is. Now, I'm going to go straight to adding and subtracting. We'll go over the rational number stuff later. I want to get to adding and subtracting, because I want you to see how we're using these. I don't think I'm ever going to get there. Good gracious. Okay, here's one right here. Now, it is very simple, and it's not, rocket science, but I'm going to show you how we use the least common multiple to find the common denominator. So first of all, I'm going to find the common denominator, because a lot of you go, oh, this is 6 times 15. Well, let's check and make sure. 6 and 15. 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and sometimes 13. 3 will go into 6. How many times? 2 and 3 will go in there 5. 2, 1, and 5. 5, 1, and 1. What is 10 times 3? 30 is your common denominator. Now, a lot of people that don't know how to do this, they would go, oh, 6 times 15. 6 times 15 is 90. And they'd make 90 the common denominator, which means you would have to reduce it down later. So, put a 30 here. Put a 30 here, no hiccuping in class. 15 will go into 30. How many times?
2.
2 times 13 is 26, Hubert. That's right, class. 6 will go into 30. How many times? 5 times 5 is what?
30.
25. What is 26 minus 25?
1.
So 1/30th is your answer. Now, I'm not showing you this because I want you to do fractions tonight for homework. That's not what I'm doing it for. The reason I'm doing it is to show you why we learn how to find the least common multiple. The least common multiple gives us the greatest common denominator. Instead of just a common denominator. If you did 90, and believe you me, these problems that I'm going to be giving you on the test, the denominators are going to be huge. But with the way you do the least common multiple, you don't have to have a big denominator. You just have to find the least common multiple. 90, you would have to say 15 will go into 90 6 times. 6 times 13. Oh, wait a minute. 6 times 3 is 18. 6. Let's see. 6 times 1. What is 6 times 13? And you run into that problem. I'm sorry. 15 will go into 90. How many times? 6 times? Yeah. And 6 times 13 is 78. And you turn this into 78 if you know the math. Check my math. And then 6 will go into 90. Let's see, 1 time, 15 times. 15 times 5 is 75. Hell, I don't know. 75. And then that turns into 3 over 90. Well, what do you have to do to get this to look like this? You got to reduce it. And you're using a lot of extra work when you don't have to. So that's why it's important for you to learn the least common multiple. Comprende? Do you understand?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all for today. All I want you to do for homework tonight is 5.1 homework. I want you to finish it. If you haven't finished it, finish it. Because I don't want to move on. Next section we'll go over is 5.3. Okay, I'm going to go over 5.3 with y'all whatever day we come back.
Whatever.